Welcome to Hack Your Happiness.
High school, grade 11 it's really rough actually. I try to prioritize, I think is the biggest thing for me. I always focus my attention on whatever is coming up first.
Are you a teen or adult looking for more happiness in every day and ways to connect with people in your life?
You've come to the right place. Hack Your Happiness is a podcast designed to bring you the behind the scenes of what brings iconic individuals happiness, plus their life hacks.
I'm Mercedes.
And I'm Anastasia.
And we're the two teens behind Small Bits of Happiness.
We're interviewing Olympic athletes, entrepreneurs, celebrities, and more.
Throughout all of our episodes, you'll find great conversations, hacks that you can take away and try in your life, inspiration, as well as unique and surprising insights. Today, we're speaking with Rachel Way. At 16 years old, Rachel Way has been described as an innate musical talent and as having nimble fingers and marvelous performance skills by the Canadian City Post. She is a well-rounded pianist, flutist, and violinist. Winning third prize at the Canadian Music Competition 2022, the Royal Conservatory of Music National Gold Medal, the overall prize at the Steinway Competition Canada, its youngest winner in history, and first place at the Bella Grande International Music Competition. In 2016, Rachel founded the Beacon of Music Foundation, organizing monthly concerts for the Maple Residence's senior home, with contributions from hundreds of youth performers. Her philanthropy extends to supporting Canuck Place Children's Hospice, raising over $43,000 through annual charity solo concerts. Rachel is also the captain of her school's Model United Nations Club. She's in grade 11. Welcome, Rachel!
Thank you so much for having me today.
Before we get into this week's episode of Hack Your Happiness, we just want to quickly say, check out our happiness wellness products designed by us for individuals of all ages to help you bring a small bit of happiness to your home with our tangible tips and tools. Check them out in the show notes. Thank you. We are so excited to be speaking with you. You are an iconic young Canadian pianist with a love for philanthropy. So take us back to the beginning. How did your journey and your love for piano and philanthropy begin?
Yeah, of course. So I get asked this question a lot, but basically I'm the youngest of 5 kids. So even like before I was born, my older siblings are 9 years older than me. They're twins. And even before I was born, I was just like listening to them practice every single day because my family was just naturally, I don't know, my mom just loved music. So she made everyone learn the piano and a second instrument. Most of us play the violin as our second instrument. And I kind of just listened to music growing up before I was born, and it was like not a question whether or not I was gonna learn music, but I was kind of the one who took it the farthest in my family. So that's kind of how I got started with music. And then in terms of philanthropy, so the school that I currently go to, Crofton House, I've been there, this is now my 12th year. So in kindergarten, my first year there, they took us to Canuck Place Children's Hospice as a choir during the Christmas time, and we sang Christmas carols for them. But we were on the kind of porch of their house, and we weren't really allowed to interact with any of the kids. I kind of thought at the time, like, hey, I wonder why, like, I'm not allowed to meet these kids, you know? But we were like really young, like 4 years old, so didn't really think that much of it. Until we were leaving that day, and I saw this girl with an oxygen tank on her back. And the workers kind of just told us that their job is to let short lives shine bright. So that kind of stuck with me. And she kind of told us that the girl only had a couple months left to live. And I had just really thought, like, I feel like I've just started my life. And she was around the same age as me. And like hers was already coming to an end. So as I was getting older, I kind of like had that image and that sentiment in my mind. And in grade 1, I held a charity concert with my two of my older siblings for the BC Children's Hospital Foundation. And then when they graduated and went to university, I thought, hey, maybe I can do these myself. So after a couple of years of preparation, I held my first concert in grade 6. And I chose Canuck Place just because I felt like I had that sort of like childhood connection with it. And I just wanted to help the kids who don't have as much time as me just really enjoy what they do have in this world.
Oh my goodness, that is so like deep and touching and meaningful.
I love that.
It's so sad like that, you know, some people go through terrible things and end up in a hospice, especially for young little kids. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine being
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 years old and experiencing that, and then again, it must be very difficult like seeing that. And I think it's amazing how, you know, you're using your amazing talents to help others in, you know, less fortunate positions. It's just so meaningful, and I mean, your story is just beautiful.
It
And
is.
Thank you, guys.
That must have taken so much practice, so many concerts.
yeah, to get to
Yeah,
the amount
definitely.
of competitions that you've won, it's incredible.
Yeah, your journey is absolutely amazing. But on that journey, what do you think your biggest challenge has been?
I think there are like definitely a lot of challenges. Even just like consistency is always like a big thing. But I think this truly the biggest thing for me, just having like I do so much with my life that it's kind of hard when I look at myself compared to others. Because when I'm going into these competitions, I'm competing against people who like only like practice piano. Like most of them do like online high school and like they practice like 12 hours a day, and it's just like insane. And they're just like some of the coolest people I've ever met. But I try to compare myself to them, and it's really just not possible sometimes because music is just one of those things that like takes an insane amount of dedication and time. And sometimes I don't have the time to invest. And I think the biggest challenge for me is just learning how to be okay with not being at their level. Even though despite like everything else I do, and that just extends to all aspect of my life. But I think mainly seeing how, you know, I compare to other people my age, especially in the music world, is just like the self-esteem part is kind of the main thing, I would say.
Absolutely. It's so
Yeah.
difficult, I think, in general, being a teenager. The comparison game is always one that we're always in, always
Yeah,
comparing how we
can't
look,
win.
who we are, who we're friends with, who we aren't friends with, to everyone around us. And so when you put something that takes so much practice and so much
Yeah.
effort,
I
like
mean,
music,
sometimes-
and you're comparing
exactly.
yourself to people who are fully committed to it, maybe not doing all the philanthropy work, running the Model United Nations, all these different things, it's difficult. And I think that's when you kind of have to think about yourself and just, you know, constantly trying to better your own self. That's what
Exactly.
I've found. But how do you deal with those moments of low self-esteem when you're comparing yourself to others?
The main thing is looking at everything that I have accomplished and remembering that these people who work so insanely hard, they aren't meant to like, you know, put me down, but like they should be used as like a source of inspiration. And like many of them are my friends. And it's really wonderful to see like how they live their lives and like how they balance their social lives, which many of them don't have, and their like practice and their school and everything. And just like taking like what I can see in other people, um, the parts that I think would be useful to, you know, work on myself with, I think, and viewing every time I meet someone like that as a learning opportunity rather than like another opportunity for comparison. I think that's generally what helps me remember. And we're all like on our own journeys. Like there's no like one path to success, you know. It's not like you have to practice 24 hours a day to like get to where you want to be and that's the only way to be successful. I just have to remember that you know, I'm on my own journey and we're all gonna have our like different strengths.
Definitely.
That is so true.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I love the way that you handle that by saying, you know, they are not someone to compare to, but they're someone to take inspiration from. And I think that's a really great mindset to have because then you're taking their best qualities, you're taking all of, you know, their good and taking that with you so you can grow. And I think that's such an amazing and mature point of view And
Yes,
I
I
mean,
agree.
definitely you have so much to balance. On top of that, you have school, you have piano, and then you have Model UN. How do you balance all of this?
How do
Such
you
a
manage
busy
your
life.
time?
I also get asked this question a lot. I think for me, it's thankfully my mom has always like had me on like kind of a rigorous schedule ever since I was young. Um, so I feel like it's more of a lifestyle thing rather than like time management, although that's definitely a big part of it. But I think just having had that like sort of time management training as I grew up was really, really helpful. Because really like when I was like really, really young, like first couple grades of school, it was just like, oh, violin class, piano class, flute class, and then school. And then I would like read outside of or during my free time and practice. And then as I got older, obviously, like the reading kind of disappeared as I had to practice more and I had to like actually spend time doing schoolwork. And it definitely gets harder as I get older. Anastasia, I know you're sorry, not Anastasia, Mercedes, you're the same age as me. So, um, high school, grade 11 it's really rough actually. And it's getting a lot harder, but I try to prioritize, I think is the biggest thing for me. Um, like I always focus my attention on whatever is coming up first. So if I have a big test, then obviously spend more time doing schoolwork and I can practice a little less that day. And then I'll just practice more when I get home from my test. Or if I have like a concert or a competition coming up, sometimes I skip a couple days of school to practice. But then after that goes over, I can just focus on getting back on track with school. Same thing with MUN when I have like deadlines and stuff. Just always prioritizing really whatever needs to be done first and focusing my energy on that. And then if I have more, then working on the other things later.
I absolutely love that because you're so right. I mean,
Yeah.
high school is brutal, especially, as you get towards the end of the year or towards finals or midterms or whatever it is that you're dealing with. I really love what you said about that give and take kind of strategy because we were talking with some people within our school and that's exactly what they said. They said, you're working on like your podcast and within, balancing that and travel and your company and how do you balance time, whether it's business or music or sports or theater or whatever it is. How do you balance that with being a full-time student if you're not online? And
I mean, especially since being a student can technically be considered a
it's a lot
full-time
of
job.
work.
And then on top of that, you have so much going on.
It's hard to be fully committed to anything else. And they said the same thing as you. It's like when you have something coming up, if you have a conference, a concert, a contest, a performance, you focus on that. And then maybe you do a little bit less school. And then once you're done that, then you focus more on school to catch up and maybe a little bit less practice or a little bit less, working on your business, depending on what it is that you're doing and
it's
the
like
timelines.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just all about balance rather than always going 100% on everything or, going like 50% on everything because you don't have any time left.
It's much better to do well on your test and then do well on your concert a bit later than to try to do 50-50 with everything.
Yes. So I think that's
absolutely.
amazing. And I mean, you have so many different things that you're working on and I'm just curious, how many hours a day do you practice piano?
That is the question that every pianist gets asked. It really, like, again, it truly depends. I aim for on school days 3 to 4 hours. And then on the weekends, I aim for like 5 to 8, depending on like what I have coming up. And especially with I want to apply to like both academic and music schools next year. So I do have to like I can't even like let off piano a little bit right now. I have to like start prepping all of my like audition tapes, like getting ready and practicing for those. So yeah, it really depends on what I have going on, but that's a general ballpark range.
That's a lot. That's a lot to manage. Even on a school day, like 4 hours of practice is a lot out of a day. That's already 7 hours like booked basically.
Yeah.
But what do you have? I mean, once you graduate from high school, where do you see yourself going, like academically and career-wise, university, college?
My dream since I was little was always to go to Harvard. I do not know what happened to make me think like, oh, Harvard's gonna be where you want to go. But it's never really changed since like the first grade. But like after looking more into like degrees and things like that, I really, really want to do econ. And then Harvard has a really cool dual degree program where you do 5 years of study and then you get a bachelor's of arts. So that would be hopefully an econ degree, and then a master's in music performance over at the New England Conservatory of Music. So that's kind of where I really hope to see myself in 2 years. Um, and generally other schools like that. But yeah, I kind of am looking towards like econ for a degree because I kind of like the idea of working on Wall Street and doing investment banking um, and going kind of into the sort of finance sector. Um, but nothing is set in stone, obviously, and there's no certainties with these kinds of things. So we'll just see what life has in store for me.
I love that.
I
And I
love
think that's
that.
such a great
Totally.
goal. I mean, I feel like there's so many incredible people to meet and so many incredible
Definitely.
opportunities over at like the
Connections.
Ivies and all of that. And so
Yeah.
that's so cool how, you have this whole music passion,
Yeah.
but then you're also passionate in like econ and investing and finance.
Yeah, that is
And
so
I think it's
amazing.
so cool to, know that you can do other things. You don't just
Exactly.
always have to be stuck in
You
one
can do
place. And
both.
you can do other
Yeah.
things. And I feel like I could see you at Harvard.
I think it'd be a
Thank
great fit there, and we're on your side. We're really hoping.
Yes, exactly. So being a pianist is really, it's the pinnacle of true
Yeah.
focus. There's so much effort and energy that goes into it. So how do you get through moments of distraction and self-doubt, and so that you can just focus on the music?
I really like this question because I think this is like really not talked about a lot actually when it comes to classical musicians because you see them on stage and they're just like most of them are like almost always perfect, and like the upcoming generation, my generation, Jesus, like the pianists my age, they are like polished to the dot. But I'm kind of just, again, without the extra hours of dedication, I'm kind of just not that pianist. So I definitely have to focus a lot more on like concentration and focus when I'm playing and practicing. And I think the most important thing is like knowing what kind of learner or like what kind of person you are really. I really, really like checklists and like to-do lists. And it just makes me like, I like small, achievable goals. So I kind of like use that to make my practicing more interesting. So sometimes when I feel like things are getting a little dull, I'll think of a list of things I need to accomplish within like my practice session. And I'll be like, okay, so um, get this done within the next like, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, and then work on this. And then in my mind, I kind of have that checklist and I can check things off. And that kind of makes practicing like have some like in a sense have like a purpose for that practice session because sometimes it's hard to see like the long run of like what I do with music because sometimes it's like I don't really have any major projects in the short term, so it's hard to see where my music is going in the long term. So kind of making those short term like goals for myself. And also actually a couple of days ago I had piano class and my teacher Wayne, he's amazing, he really likes to connect music and like other aspects of life, and that's why I think he's like the best piano teacher I've ever had. Because we can have these discussions about how like piano is eventually going to help me in my future, whatever I do. And he was telling me how, especially with having been sick for like 2 weeks, it was crazy how long I was sick for. But he was saying that I have to learn how to kind of flip on the switch of like focus. And he just tried to get me to imagine like having a switch for everything I do in life. Like, oh, time to do homework, I flip on that switch. And then if I need a break, then I can just switch it off. But it's so much harder to like try to get things done while the switch is off rather than just setting like smaller like time chunks or like smaller goals with the switch on, and it just makes you so much more productive. And I think that really helps me in terms of like kind of just visualizing that. And
I love having like the switch like that and having those small achievable goals because it's so much easier to achieve so much more when you just have small stepping stones instead of having one giant goal that you're trying to jump to, but it's kind of hard because you're not exactly sure how you're going to get there. But also celebrating those small things is such a great way also to feel happier because you're constantly achieving something. And that
yeah.
switch for concentration, I love the idea of that. I think I'm going to start using that too.
I agree because I think having something to actually
picture, like right now I'm going to go into my math exam and I'm going to have the math switch on, and then after I leave this I'm going to flip on like the piano switch and practice my piano, and it's like a totally different mindset that you're going into. And I really love that because I think everyone, what we struggle with, especially as teenagers, is that delegation.
and like, you know, we have a lot of different things that we have to think about and a lot of different places to put ourselves, and having like a way of like separating that kind of with the switches and like having like a physical thing that you can
Picture is so, I think, incredibly helpful.
Exactly. And when you're playing the piano, I'm sure there's so many different techniques and exercises that you can use to improve your focus and concentration. Do you have any like examples of these?
Yeah.
I think actually something really cool that's emerging recently is mindfulness. So I was first introduced to the concept. My piano teacher started a piano festival here in Vancouver called Vancouver Piano Sessions. And they brought in two mindfulness coaches, and they were like mandatory sessions that we had to go to. We did like a lot of like meditation stuff, and the coaches like taught us about how important practicing mindfulness is, and like kind of not getting lost in like the hustle and bustle of daily life. And so one technique that they taught us for mindfulness and just like focus in general is the starfish method. And actually, surprisingly, I didn't think that I was going to be like subconsciously doing this like outside of the piano festival, but I noticed like sometimes in school I just do it. So basically, the your hands are starfish, and then each finger is like a breath. So if you want to relax, then you breathe in fast and then you have a long exhale. And if you want to energize yourself, you breathe in slowly and then you exhale quickly. And then you kind of have like 10 breaths to center yourself before you want to like, they said to do it before you have like a performance or something, but I use it like before I go into tests and things like that, just to like really like center myself and just practice that mindfulness. And generally like meditation also helps. If I have the time, I really like doing short meditation sessions that actually my math teacher introduced me to, because he's really big on like having focus. So he kind of takes like 10-15 minutes at the beginning of all of our classes to just like either give us some time to just like listen to everything that's going on around us and just close our eyes, or listen to like a guided meditation or do some coloring or anything like that. It's just really good to like relax and like, you know, focus your attention on like what you're about to do to increase your productivity.
I think that's so incredible, and I think what's so interesting is how music and piano applies to so many different aspects of life, like not just excelling at a competition or a concert, but also doing well in school or
calming down when you're feeling stressed or tired and
or
energizing
even getting
yourself.
exactly I was just about to say
yeah
that.
And so I find that so interesting, and I love how you mentioned previously that like your current piano teacher applies it to so many different parts of life, and I think that's so awesome because so many teenagers, even if we're not like professional level musicians,
are interested in music, are interested in different instruments or you know, singing, songwriting, all of that. And so I think it's really cool taking what you learn in the studio, taking what you learn while you're practicing and applying it to
all different elements of life. And so I wonder, like, do you feel overwhelmed because there's so many
different things going on? I mean, being a teen is hard enough, you know, being in a high school or middle school is hard enough, dealing with friendship issues and a social life is hard enough, and then you add on
additional stressors and it gets overwhelming, even if you're really passionate about what it is that might be adding to that overwhelm. So if you feel overwhelmed, how do you deal with those feelings?
I definitely have those moments, but I think for me, what's really, really amazing, and hopefully for like teenagers everywhere, is like having an amazing support system. So when I feel overwhelmed, the first person I go to is my mom, and she she is like the best person ever. She listens to me and she helps me like ground myself again. And it's just really, my mom is like just so amazing at being supportive, and she drives me everywhere, and she's just the best person ever. So the first person I always go to is my mom. But obviously with the generation gaps and everything, sometimes there are things that like just adults can't understand. So obviously, I have amazing friends who can also listen to me rant about whatever I need to. And usually, just like getting my feelings out and having someone like acknowledge them to me is really helpful. And then it kind of just like helps me remember, like I'm not doing this all alone. Like I have so many people that are willing to support me and help me in any way they can. So I think for me, that's kind of the main thing that I do when I get overwhelmed.
I love that so much. Having a support system is so important for, just being able to talk to someone when you're stressed out and when you feel like a little bit worried about something, just being able to get those emotions off your chest. Like, for example, a problem shared is a problem halved, and all of a sudden that burden that you felt on your shoulders is just so much lighter. And I feel like definitely having that support system is so important, and I'm so happy that you are so close with your mom. But totally, I understand sometimes those generation gaps are real, and I'm so happy that you have some amazing friends that want to see you succeed and they're happy to listen to you.
And I feel like sometimes if we don't have someone, maybe you're not super close with your parents and you're kind of struggling with the social scene at school or outside of school, I think that even like finding people that you can talk to, like for instance maybe your grandparents or a coach or a music teacher, like I feel like sometimes you got to think a little bit outside of the box, but there's people who will
understand you and that you can share your feelings with, and that always, like Anastasia says, it helps you, and a problem shared is a problem halved.
What would you say are your top 3 tips for teens for time management?
Sorry, like I said earlier, prioritizing things is like my number one for time management. And then personally, again, for me, I love to-do list. So having a place to track everything that I need to do is really helpful. And just being able, again, that helps with like prioritization to see like, oh, you've got a concert coming up, and then you have a math test after, and then you have blah, blah, blah due. And it's just helpful for me to see how I can prioritize that thing. And then setting kind of like time blocks is, I think, really, really helpful. Because I think I read like, okay, actually TikTok is not the most reliable source, but sometimes they put things in your head and you're like, hey, that makes sense. So I saw this TikTok that was like, when you have like a certain amount of time set aside for something, you're gonna do the task that you like put aside for that time a lot quicker than if you gave yourself like endless time. So like setting times to like achieve goals. So not only having like, I'm gonna get this done, but I'm gonna get this done in X amount of time, I think is really helpful in terms of time management.
That is really smart. I love how, definitely, I think that when you have unlimited time, you kind of feel like, oh, it's okay if I like scroll on TikTok for a little bit. It's not gonna do anything.
And the next thing you know, it's like 4 hours.
Exactly, and I'm like, oh wait, I still need to finish this. Definitely having that, like, I'm gonna finish it by, let's say, like, noon is such a great way to kind of view it, because then all of a sudden you're telling yourself you're having a boundary and then you're going to try to finish that, and also maybe having a bit of a reward at the end. Once I finish this at noon, then I can scroll for a little bit on TikTok.
Exactly. And I think it makes sense. I mean, TikTok it has some good little ideas in there, some good hacks. Exactly. There's there's gems in there.
Exactly.
But do you ever experience, like, I know sometimes maybe you're playing piano and you mess up like a little bit. Do you ever experience little stressful moments that throw you off?
and like you don't have a big reaction time. You kind of have to deal with them right away. Do you ever experience that? And if so, how do you handle those?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those happen all the time. Like to the average ear, you probably won't hear like most of the things that like obviously I listen for on a daily basis. But as a musician, like when you listen to yourself play, it's actually like really excruciating sometimes to have to sit through that. And then the focus to listen to yourself while you're playing is like it's like multitasking really. Um, so in terms of those, I know that like that's probably like one of my biggest weaknesses, like consistency and like always like I don't know the word is like I've been watching dance. People talk about dance a lot, like hitting, like those moments and like everything that I like practice to do in a performance or a competition. Um, that's like my biggest weakness. So I do have strategies like to help me get over that sometimes. The biggest thing is having like recovery spots within my pieces. And as I'm getting older and like prepping my rep for university auditions, my pieces are getting quite long. I learned my first like over 20 minutes piece. It's 26, 27 minutes long. And sometimes, and just because it's like pretty freshly baked, I still do have like memory slips here and there. Um, but like after a performance, every performance is really a learning opportunity. Analyzing like, hey, it seems like even in practice, like this section is always like a hazard. So like really knowing like the start, the end, the middle, and then if anything ever goes wrong, being able to like go to one of those like spawn points in a game or whatever. Like if anything goes wrong, just being able to find that spot and those harmonies really helps me like in terms of if anything ever does happen, which is definitely like you never know what can happen in a performance. Um, but then also sometimes when those things happen, I realize that it's kind of just like me getting in my head and like worrying about that. It's like if I think in my head, oh no, this part's gonna go wrong, it usually does go wrong. So sometimes in a performance, I just always aim to like stop thinking in a way, which is good and bad. But the good obviously is that I'm like not overthinking things, and sometimes the bad can be like I forget small details here and there. But to like combat that, when I'm practicing, I just try to practice as much like and work as hard on those details as I can so that when I'm performing, I can think of it of more like a performance rather than just, oh, I'm gonna get this detail and then I'm gonna get this. And then sometimes you kind of like lose the big picture and like you kind of lose the idea of like connecting with your audience. So just really important practice and like knowing what work needs to get done before I go into a performance or competition. And then also having those like recovery points for me is what I do to get over those like mini issues in a performance.
I think that's perfect because sometimes things happen. There's like something we think of something, there's a little distraction, but just being able to bounce back and keep on going.
Exactly. I love how you have those little like checkpoints almost where like you can always backtrack to there.
A 27-minute piece.
Oh my God,
I can't
so
imagine
long.
that's a lot to like
memorize and
Exactly.
work through. So that's very, very, very inspiring.
Yeah, exactly. So what is one piece of advice that you would like to give your younger self?
So I thought about this one a lot. Obviously, like we're all still quite young, so but I think one thing that I struggled with a lot growing up was my just self-confidence. Um, so I think what I would tell my younger self, even just like what, like 12, 13 years old, is to just like not care so much. Like, um, about what other people think, about like results of things, especially like competitions. That definitely has gotten better as I have gotten older and realized that not everything is about first place. But just just not caring what other people think, and just always focusing on like bettering yourself. Because at the end of the day, um, it doesn't really matter what other people think as long as you're happy with yourself and you're not like harming anyone in the way. Um, and I always just also like to think that like everything happens for a reason. And there's out of every bad or good opportunity or experience, there's an opportunity to learn from it.
I really admire how you look at everything as a learning opportunity. I think that's such a great perspective to have on life.
I agree.
Because like you said, I love the everything happens for a reason, because sometimes you're just like, what is going on right now? And then
Absolutely.
a year later or 6 months later, you're like, whoa, that
without that I wouldn't have learned this, or I wouldn't have met that person, or I wouldn't have realized how passionate I am on this topic.
Life is like really funny like that. You feel like in a moment you're like, this is horrible, nothing good is ever gonna come out of it, and then next thing you know, you're like, I kind of owe it to that bad moment.
Challenge.
Yeah.
And I
love the don't care as much about what other people think.
Definitely.
Because I think for me, especially this year, I've realized like nobody pays as much attention to you or cares as much about you as you think that they do. Like you're microanalyzing everything you say and everything you
do and what you wear and how you look, and then all of a sudden even your friends are like, wait, what happened? Like, they don't even know what you said, or
exactly.
They don't remember, because nobody, and those are like
your friends, like people who pay attention. And so it's
all
like,
of a sudden
nobody,
you're like, wait, I don't microanalyze everything everybody else around me does. Why would everybody else around me only think about those small mess ups that I did?
Exactly.
Because everybody's just thinking about themselves. Everybody's thinking
about themselves being
judged, that they don't have as much. And of course there's always like the bully and the mean people that always pick on you.
Like, one.
But in general, I think it's really important to learn that and to carry that with you and just kind of remind yourself that if you mess up a little bit, people won't
notice, and people also have grace because they get it. So I really love that. What do you do every day that brings you a small bit of happiness?
A big thing for me is like listening to music. My Spotify Wrapped this year, the amount of like the time that they told me I listened to music was kind of insane. But I love like all music. Like I play classical obviously, but outside of that I love listening to like jazz and pop and rap. Like I just love listening to everything. And there are certain like songs or pieces that like I don't know what it is about them, the harmonies or whatever, the rhythm, that just like it has to put me in a good mood. Like there's like it can't do anything else. Like this is a little specific, but I've been listening to I think Kapuscin's First Sonata, the fourth movement, a lot recently. Like it's just been on repeat because it just makes me so happy. And then also just talking to my friends, I think they're amazing. So talking to them is always like just a source of happiness.
I think that music is such a great way of finding happiness. I love listening to music a lot. I always have my AirPods in. Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes like you can't even hear what I'm saying because just listening to music.
That's okay. Definitely though, friends also are such a great way of finding happiness, especially once you finally find those people that understand you and you in common and you always have something to talk about. Exactly. It's such
so
a great
nice that you can like confide in.
Exactly. It's such a great
to.
relationship.
I love that. So
definitely.
Do you have a specific
motivational quote that you love and that you remember that inspires you?
So this is actually, I don't know if this counts as a motivational quote, but it is a song lyric. My sister introduced me to Hamilton back like a couple years back. So I kind of got obsessed with it and like memorized almost the entire musical. But I think one of the songs that me and my friends love most, my Hamilton loving friends only, because some people were really against my love for Hamilton. But we love the song Wait for It. And one of the lines that Aaron Burr sings is, I'm the one thing in life I can control. And I just think that's like so it's just such a great like line to live by, because it's like, yeah, I'm gonna work as hard as I can, but then at the end of the day, like the result is usually something that I can't control. it's out of my hands. So at this point, I'm just going to work as hard as I can, and whatever happens, happens. And then again, everything happens for a reason. Um, and that just kind of like helps me remember that, again, I can control as much as I can, but there's so much that's out of my control, and I just have to be okay with that. And yeah.
We're definitely big Hamilton fans.
Exactly.
I love Hamilton. The music is so good. Like sometimes in the car, we just listen to it, or
watching the musical over and over.
Definitely.
It's good music.
I know, it's so easy to get into because all the songs are so good. Like I don't think there's a song
their
that
lyrics are very detailed as well.
They are very detailed.
I love that one. That one is definitely a standout. I agree. It's beautiful and so important to remember that.
You know, you can't control a lot because I think sometimes we feel very out of control, but you can control you and how you perceive pretty much anything.
Exactly. Do you have anything exciting coming up, like any shows, concerts, events?
I mean, obviously I do these charity concerts every year. So next year I was actually thinking of getting some of my friends involved as kind of like a graduation recital for me as well, because a lot of my friends do those like right before they're about to go to university. And like once I'm done with like my auditions, I'm really looking forward to like learning more chamber music with my friends. I think like that's something, or like a part of like being a musician that I haven't had as much experience with, as much as some of my friends. And I think it's just like such a rewarding experience being able to like come together with like your friends and make music, especially like those who don't play the same instruments as you, and you're able to still connect with them over the same piece of music. So I'm really excited, and hopefully I'll be learning a lot more chamber music and a lot more music that doesn't have to like fit university requirements. Although I love all the music that I play for getting ready for university, but there's just so much music that I want to learn that I unfortunately don't have the time for right now. So that, and then hopefully a very fun concert next year with all of my friends and everything. And then I think, coming up, I have a couple auditions for provincial competitions. And then I'm also going to provincials at the beginning of June, and it's gonna be in Fort St. John. So it's like a 12-hour drive or like a 2-hour flight or something. So yeah, and then I think just getting ready for university.
There's a lot of exciting things going on. What music would you play? Like, if you could play any song or learn any song right now, what would you pick?
I think I would pick Gaspard de la Nuit by Ravel. He's my absolute favorite composer. I really, really love like all French Impressionism composers, Fauré and Debussy, and people like that. They just like make the most beautiful music. So in terms of piano music, I definitely choose Gaspard de la Nuit because so many of my conservatory friends play it, and so many of my friends just play it, and it's just such a beautiful piece of music. And I've just been wanting to learn it for so long. So that's definitely, I think, going to be on my list of top things to learn.
Amazing. We'll definitely have to check that out on Spotify as well. Is there anywhere where our audience can find you if they want to keep up with all the exciting things you've got coming up?
Yeah. So my Instagram it's kind of weird. It's Rachel Way, but without the L. So RACHEWEI. I have a YouTube channel. I think if you just search Rachel Way, that just comes up. And yeah, and then in my Instagram, I also have my music Instagram, which I try to keep up to date, but also I get lazy sometimes. But I think that's just Rachel Way Music. If you want to keep up with things that I'm doing over there. My website, rachelwaymusic.com.
Perfect. Yeah. All of those will be linked in the show notes. So if anybody wants to check
them out, it's really easy for them to get there. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's been incredible hearing about everything you've achieved and everything you've got coming up, and you know how you manage all this, and you're so inspiring. So
you are so iconic.
Thank you guys. You guys are really amazing. You're so sweet.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Hack Your Happiness, and thank you so much for Rachel for coming on today.
She is so inspiring. I mean, Rachel is the same age as me, and it's so cool to see someone follow their passion, as well as I love how she's not just an incredibly talented musician, but she's also a philanthropist. She leads her Model UN. She wants to go to Harvard. She's got so many different passions, so many different areas of interest, and speaking to her inspires me, and I loved every moment of that interview.
She is so dynamic and so inspiring.
Exactly. And Sejal, what is your biggest takeaway from Rachel today?
My favorite hack that I learned from Rachel is to delegate your life out. For example, when you're working on something and you really need to focus on that, just imagining the switch. I think the switch is such a genius concept.
I loved that.
I'm probably going to be using that when I feel like I can't really focus on something, because it's like all of a sudden you're blocking out all those other thoughts. And I love having an aspect that you can almost imagine and see.
Like visualize.
Exactly. And just delegating your life and saying, I need to work on this right now. I'm going to turn that switch on so I can focus on that. And then you can turn your switch off so that you can relax and do some other work that you don't need to have such full attention to. What about you, Mercedes?
My biggest takeaway from Rachel would have to be, prioritize what's at hand. If you've got a math exam coming up, study a little bit more and practice a little bit less. If you've got a music concert coming up, maybe it's okay to not do all of your homework and finish it once your concert's over. Always prioritize what's coming up, and that's the way that you can achieve success in different aspects of life and, be well-rounded and do what you love, even if, that's in multiple different places, or you need to still work, or you need to still attend school, because as a teen, you kind of have to. But just prioritize what's at hand, and it's okay to not always give 100% of yourself to everything. I think sometimes we feel really guilty for maybe not practicing for 7 hours for piano today, or going to do all of our calculus homework or all of our bio homework, but realizing that it's okay, I'm going to prioritize what's coming up, and then I'll catch up later, because life is all about balance, and it's just all about finding what works.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, please leave us a 5-star review from wherever you're listening. It really helps us out and we really appreciate it.
Also, be sure to join our happiness family. It's completely free and it really helps us out, and most of all, we would love to have you as part of our happiness family, and you can do that by following Hack Your Happiness on whichever podcast platform you're listening on right now.
See you next time!